Breaking news tonight, deadly tornadoes ripping through the south. This house thrown 200 yards.
You could actually feel the walls of the house moving.
Storms killing at least 11 nationwide. The Midwest pounded by snow and ice, and record warmth in the east. 70 degrees in Boston in January. Also breaking rockets fired into an Iraqi base where U.S. forces are stationed, while in Iran, massive protests in the streets after the government admitted shooting down that civilian plane. Plus, what the U.S. Secretary of Defense now says about the president's claim Iran was targeting 4 U.S. embassies. The dangerous flu outbreak and a 4-year-old girl blinded by the virus. Her mother's warning to parents everywhere. An emergency summit for the royals. Prince Harry face-to-face with his family tomorrow. What Prince William is saying about his brother. The SOS that sparked the rescue of an Alaska man stranded in the frozen wilderness for more than 3 weeks. And the ultimate victory lap. Why this grade schooler got a standing ovation from his classmates.
This is NBC Nightly News with Kate Snow.
Good evening. It's been a dangerous weekend in many parts of the country. At least 11 people are dead after a storm raced across the U.S., bringing high wind and rare January tornadoes, and then conditions quickly changing over to snow and flooding rain. In the Midwest and South, emergency rescues in rising water. In Oregon, deadly storm surge swept a family off a popular beach. But while all that was happening, here in the East, people spent the day in T-shirts with record high temperatures. We begin tonight with Sam Brock in the tornado zone in Bossier Parish, Louisiana. Sam?
Kate, good evening. In the middle of the night, a tornado 3 times as wide as a football field ripped through this community. The man who was living in the house behind me got an alert on his phone, moved to the other side of the house. Moments later, a tree split that house in 2.
Tonight, people across the South grappling with unimaginable devastation.
You could actually feel the walls of the house moving.
As tornadoes wreaked havoc in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Louisiana, forcing emergency declarations and sobering cleanups.
When daylight came and we looked out there, we looked and we said, there's no way this was a small tornado.
In Houghton, Louisiana, a haunting scene. Entire streets blanketed by debris from homes. Just miles away in Bossier Parish, an elderly couple was killed by a tornado that tossed their trailer home hundreds of feet.
Tornadoes this close to home, no, this is the worst I've seen.
The storm racing across the U.S. in 5 days, bringing the worst severe weather in 7 years. So far, 11 lives lost, 3 each in Alabama, Texas, and Louisiana, and 1 in both Oklahoma and Iowa. In Midway, Arkansas, the giant footprint of a house. All that's left now, cinder blocks and rubble.
Sounded like a freight train come over the top of us.
Coast-to-coast catastrophe. King tides in Oregon swept a family out to sea, killing a 7-year-old girl. A 4-year-old boy is still missing. And in the middle of the country,
the tires have a hard time getting traction.
Heavy snow and rain snarled travel. Chicago's O'Hare dealing with more than 1,200 delays. And on the East Coast, a different story. At least 14 states hitting record high temperatures in the 60s and 70s.
It's amazing what Mother Nature can do.
A country coming to grips with a powerful complex of storms.
And Sam, back to where you are, what kind of challenges are officials and residents facing as they try to clean all that up? It looks terrible.
A lot of challenges, Kate. In this region alone, nearly 30,000 customers lost power. They are working furiously right now to try to restore that power because temperatures are going to be dipping into the 30s overnight. Additionally, some of the homes around here have holes in their roofs. With rain expected later in the week, they're trying to patch that quickly. Kate?
Sam Brock, thank you. There were massive protests in Iran over the downing of that Ukrainian passenger jet last week that killed everyone on board. It's a diplomatic crisis for that country that has its leaders trying to contain criticism at home and around the world. Richard Engel reports tonight from the region.
Iran is now facing the backlash for having shot down a passenger plane bound for Ukraine, killing mostly Iranians, and then lying about it. There were protests in Tehran and other cities, chants against the supreme leader and the powerful and often feared Revolutionary Guard. Riot police called in to break up the demonstrations. Risking their freedom and potentially their lives, the protesters were undeterred, calling their leaders liars and dictators. In one video, verified by NBC News, protesters symbolically refused to walk on Israeli and American flags, symbols of the government's sworn enemies. President Trump weighed in, firing double-barreled on Twitter, in English and Farsi. One tweet, a warning to the government. Don't kill the protesters. The USA is watching. The other, embracing the demonstrators. The administration stands with you. While the protests are a new domestic crisis for Iran, next door in Iraq, U.S. troops remain on high alert for possible attacks, most likely from Iranian-backed militia groups. An Iraqi base today north of Baghdad came under attack by 8 small rockets, injuring at least 4 Iraqis. No U.S. troops were there at the time. The militias are a dangerous wild card and could drag the region into conflict, which could further destabilize Iran. Only a few months ago, Iran faced one of its most intense uprisings in decades after the government, suffering under U.S. sanctions, raised gas prices. The government, U.S. officials say, killed hundreds of protesters in an extraordinarily lethal crackdown.
After President Trump ordered the killing of Iran's top general here in Baghdad, a wave of patriotism and national unity swept over Iran, a wave that now appears to be breaking.
Richard Engel in Baghdad, thanks. Now to the Trump administration's decision to take out Iran's top general. The U.S. Secretary of Defense today did not describe the intelligence leading to that strike quite the same way as the president has. Hans Nichols reports from the White House.
Tonight, the Secretary of Defense appearing to contradict the commander-in-chief that a specific threat from Iran involved 4 U.S. embassies in the Middle East.
I didn't see one with regard to 4 embassies.
But Esper was careful not to directly undercut President Trump.
What the president said was he believed that it probably and could have been attacks against additional embassies.
After justifying the strike that killed Qasem Soleimani at a Thursday campaign rally by saying that multiple embassies were threatened,
not just the embassy in Baghdad.
The president got more specific in a Fox News interview Friday night.
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies, and I think that probably Baghdad already started.
Esper, part of an administration effort to defend the strike as Democratic and Republican lawmakers question the evidence that the Trump administration has shared with Congress.
He is fudging the intelligence.
The congressional concern on Iran coming as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi prepares to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate this week.
We have confidence in our case.
With President Trump appearing to adopt a new approach, agreeing with Pelosi that impeachment will now be a stain on his legacy, tweeting, "Why should I have the stigma of impeachment attached to my name when I did nothing wrong?"
And Hans is with us now from the White House. Hans, today late, the president suggested that the Senate should vote for an outright dismissal of the articles of impeachment. What does that mean?
Well, he appears to be urging the Senate to dismiss the articles before any impeachment trial is held because he doesn't want to give what he calls the Democratic witch hunt any credibility. Now, that puts him in line with Senator Mitch McConnell, who wants to change the Senate rules to reject the articles before the House sends them over. Kate?
A lot ahead. Hans Nichols, thank you. The Democratic race for the president is now in its final sprint to the Iowa caucuses in just about 3 weeks from now. New polling finds a new leader of the pack, and he's under fire this evening. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is following all of that from Des Moines.
Tonight, a new but not unfamiliar frontrunner here in Iowa.
Our campaign is about, winning here in Iowa, winning the Democratic nomination.
And a new fight today with his primary opponent, Elizabeth Warren.
I was disappointed to hear that Bernie is sending his volunteers out to trash me.
Her comments in response to reports that the Sanders campaign was sharing a script instructing volunteers on how to sway voters who are leaning towards Warren. Sanders this afternoon disavowing that he was behind any effort to discredit Warren.
We have hundreds of employees. You have heard me for months. I have never said a negative word about Elizabeth Warren, who is a friend of mine.
Just 3 weeks from the Iowa caucus, Sanders now leading the once crowded Democratic field, with Warren, Joe Biden, and Pete Buttigieg all close behind.
What does that say about your campaign?
Well, polls go up and down, but what is important to me is the kind of grassroots support that we have.
Sanders is blitzing tonight across Iowa by bus, just ahead of the Senate impeachment trial.
I'd rather be here in Iowa, but I have a constitutional responsibility, which I accept as a United States Senator.
And candidates scraping for every backer with just 22 days left here.
We'll continue to see that there's a fluid race, but that we're in the hunt, and we'll keep pushing with an underdog mentality all the way until the voting begins.
Vaughn, 22 days, but still plenty of chances for Democrats to make themselves heard right before the caucus.
Kate, Pete Buttigieg will actually be holding a campaign rally here in just a few minutes here in Des Moines. He's one of just 6 candidates who have qualified for the next Democratic debate here in the city. In a campaign cycle full of unknowns, what is clear is that this will not be decided in Iowa. Kate?
We still have time. Vaughn Hilliard, thank you. Now to an incredible survival story from the Alaskan wilderness. A man stranded in the brutal cold for weeks is alive tonight thanks to the creative way he managed to reach rescuers flying overhead. Sarah Harmon has that story.
It was a moment Tyson Steele feared he might not live to see.
Kilo 3, you were partially 10 when I copied you arrived at the cabin.
His SOS in the snow finally spotted by state troopers after a devastating fire left him stranded in a remote part of Alaska.
I was grateful that all my bullets blew up because that could have been a temptation.
Steele told troopers he awoke in the middle of the night to find his cabin in flames, his nearest neighbor more than 20 miles away. He grabbed what he could, but nearly everything inside was lost, including his beloved dog, Phil.
It was cold. I didn't have any socks in my boots, and I was just wearing pajamas at that point and a T-shirt.
For more than 20 days, Steele survived Alaska's brutal sub-zero winter weather, building a makeshift shelter and rationing his charred tins of food.
Pineapples. I'm allergic to pineapples. I ate them anyway because it's what I had.
Despite his harrowing experience, the Utah native plans to return to the last frontier.
2 cabins in case one burns down.
Tonight, an Alaskan by choice and a survivor through and through. Sarah Harmon, NBC News.
Glad he still has a sense of humor. Still ahead tonight, Prince Harry faces his family tomorrow for the first time since his surprise announcement. Plus, the superstar singer the couple reportedly told before they told the Queen. Also, the volcano eruption and the dire warning to thousands in its path. The biggest talker this weekend, what will happen at tomorrow's high-stakes royal family meeting over the future of Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle. They've made it clear they want to live life by their own rules. And tonight, new details about what Prince William is now saying about his brother. Here's Katie Beck in London.
The Queen seen solemnly heading to church Sunday near the royal estate in Sandringham, one day before a crisis royal family summit on Harry and Meghan's future. After the pair's bombshell announcement, their plans to step back from royal life.
This is about them saying there's an urgency to this, we must find a solution.
Prince Charles will jet in for the crisis talks from Oman, where he's been paying respects to the former Sultan and greeting the new one. Prince William and Prince Harry also to travel to the estate. Meghan Markle likely to join the meeting by phone from Canada, where she returned to be with baby Archie after the announcement. The palace framing talks as complex and thoughtful. Broadcaster and close friend of Harry's, Tom Bradby, remains hopeful for resolution.
He loves this country. He believes in the monarchy. And I think even now it's possible to construct something where, yeah, maybe the half-in, half-out model does work.
Beyond hashing out titles, housing, detail, and pay, perhaps, too, a chance to address a widening wound between brothers. British papers reporting Sunday Prince William's sadness over a broken bond with Harry. I've put my arm around my brother all of our lives, and I can't do that anymore. We're separate entities.
They were once the closest of brothers, and now, unfortunately, they've taken very different paths in life.
And new reports that Harry and Meghan told another celebrity confidant about their move before telling the Queen. Oprah saying the couple doesn't need her help. Now, their dear friend Sir Elton John is said to have known. His rep telling NBC News the plans were a surprise to him, too, and that he did not know before the Queen.
So, Katie, this all goes down tomorrow. When will we know what happens?
Well, Kate, the Queen has indicated that she wants this resolved quickly, and she's hoping for days and not weeks. So it is likely that we could be getting some answers very soon after tomorrow's meeting. Kate.
All right, Katie Beck, thank you. Up next, a rare but devastating diagnosis, a little girl blinded by the flu. Her mother now with a strong warning for other families. Plus, why the whole school welcomed back this brave little boy. Evacuations are underway right now following a powerful volcano eruption in the Philippines. It happened about 40 miles south of Manila, shutting down the international airport there. Scientists are worried another blast could follow, so they're warning thousands of residents in the area to leave immediately. In Australia, the nation is honoring those on the front lines battling those wildfires. The iconic Sydney Opera House sails are now illuminated with these images of firefighters, rescue workers, and volunteers. The images come from photographers covering the disaster during the past 3 months now. They're meant to be symbols of hope and solidarity. Back here in the U.S., the flu season is intensifying with nearly 10 million cases reported and widespread activity in all 50 states now. Dozens of children have died. Tonight, the story of one family dealing with the unimaginable consequences of the virus. Dr. John Torres shares a mother's warning.
Throw it, Jade, throw it. Tonight, 4-year-old Jade DeLucia's mother is worried Jade will never see again because of the flu.
I'm trying to just hold on to what I can control right now, and which is how can I give her the best possible care.
Just before Christmas, Jade contracted the flu, and on Christmas Eve, she became unresponsive. Amanda rushed her to the hospital.
So I was holding her, just limp on my body, and I looked down at her, and her eyes were in the back of her head, and that's when I looked at him. I'm like, you need to move. We have to go.
Jade spent over 2 weeks in the ICU, much of that in a coma. She developed a disease called encephalopathy, a swelling of the brain that caused her to lose her vision. Doctors telling Amanda they won't know if her vision loss is permanent for up to 6 months.
And at that point, they didn't come out and tell me that they were a little bit worried. But, looking back now and seeing, some of the doctors' responses, it was pretty bleak. So, oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Jade got the flu vaccine last March, so her parents thought she was covered. But doctors say it's critical to get the vaccine in the fall before each season. Amanda hopes her story will be a lesson for all parents.
Well, you do what's best for your children. So you know your children, you educate yourself and you make the decision for yourself and for your kids, and that's all that we can do.
Such a hard story, but it's not too late to get the vaccine, right? I saw you the other day. You told me I could still get it, and I did this week.
And Kate, that's great. It's actually protecting you a lot more than you think. And flu experts I talked with this year are telling me that now, instead of emphasizing the shot's overall effectiveness, they're going to focus on the message that it can help prevent these types of severe symptoms like Jade's.
Okay. Dr. John, thank you. Another child beating the odds against an overwhelming illness, and now his victory lap is going viral. That is 6-year-old John Oliver Zippé. He got a standing ovation at his Newbury, Ohio school recently following his final chemotherapy treatment for leukemia. He is better now, though, and that brave little boy walked to class, cheered on by staff and students. So well-deserved after 3 years in and out of the hospital. Makes you smile. When we come back, the simple yet surprising way one brave teenager is transforming lives and inspiring others. There's good news tonight about bouncing back and giving back. A teenager is taking his own experience with bullies and turning it into a surprising yet simple way to give others more confidence and joy.
At 14 years old, Kyler Nipper knows what it's like to be teased about worn-out shoes.
My shoes used to get creased a lot. They used to break and rip, and so the kids used to make fun of me for it.
The bullying got so bad he was attacked by a classmate, leaving him scarred physically and emotionally. But now he's making sure others, also living with limited means, have new shoes they're proud of. With his nonprofit called Kyler's Kicks.
Yeah, Kyler's Kicks really helps my PTSD. My main goal is to try and give away shoes to make sure it doesn't happen to other kids.
So far, he's handed out more than 30,000 pairs of free shoes donated by major retailers. At Whitney Elementary School in Las Vegas, the need is all too real.
Our kids go home to basic survival, and that can get really ugly.
For Kyler, it's become almost a full-time job with hours every day coordinating donations, all leading up to this. Delivery Day at Whitney.
When I was in middle school, I was getting bullied a lot over my shoes.
For many of these students, they're more than a pair of shoes. Their warmth in the winter or their first gift in a year.
It feels awesome helping out all the kids and making sure that they all have shoes.
I think they're gonna last long. He's very soft and very good. I'm really thankful for him giving me shoes.
Our students are absolutely amazing, but underserved and often underestimated. It's the best part of my job is to know that our kids had something that is just for them, that no one could take away.
Kyler's giving a lot, despite needing a lot himself. He and his family are currently homeless, living in a shelter. They say they struggled to make ends meet after paying for Kyler's therapy costs.
Making sure that other people are healthy and good, it really helps me out.
For Kyler, handing out shoes is his way of dealing with his past.
Yeah, every day giving back, it feels amazing. It really makes an impact on my life as well as others.
But for tens of thousands of kids, he's creating a brighter future, one step at a time.
For them to be able to see that someone like Kyler is changing the world, is changing children's lives, doing something in a positive way is really, really influential for our kids.
And Kyler continues to inspire. He's even opened a space for teens in Las Vegas, staffed with mental health volunteers to help kids who are going through tough times. Amazing. That is NBC Nightly News on a Sunday night. Lester Holt will be back with you tomorrow. I'm Kate Snow. For all of us at NBC News, have a great night.
Here we go, Mama. Here, keep trying these on. See which ones fit, and then we find a size, okay?
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.